Hi, Quentin. Quentin, can you hear me? Mhm.
Can you hear me now, Alan?
Yep, I got you.
So who's on the committee right now? Is there
Us
guys?
three.
Are you guys
And
in
then
public?
those two. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
We're shifting, huh? Yeah, you can see the screen.
Start whenever you guys like to.
Awesome. Could you give me screen sharing access by chance, please?
If you insist, I guess. That should do it.
Thank you. All right, it is 6:32. I'm just going to go ahead and open the meeting. If folks trickle in, that is a-okay. Could we please take roll?
Let's see, I have everybody who's on the committee, and then I have your Brian Bowman, right? And then we have, I think we have Hope.
Yep, Hope Roberts.
And then remind me of your name.
Melissa McLaughlin.
Yep, okay, hold on 1 second here. And then who's next to Hope?
I'm Keita Ramsey.
How do you spell your name?
K-E-N-A. It's R-A-M-S-E-Y.
Okay.
Tamara, T-A-N-R-A, hyphenated last name, Bush, hyphen Johnson, who was Evelyn.
Go ahead.
I'm Ryan.
Okay, I have you, I got you. And then, do you guys want to be on the list?
I'm Brian Stewart, the basic service.
Okay, I do have your security staff, okay.
And Bob just joined as well, Bob Olson.
Bob Olson, okay. Okay, we're good.
Awesome. Pretty light meeting tonight. We'll go ahead and do the usual meeting minute approval, and then have public comment period if there's any public comments. And then we have two primary action items. We had a general discussion about this, a very, very light discussion. Also came up in the board meeting that I went to, was the actual trail names at Bob and Crystal Riley Park. So we'll have a discussion about that tonight. I also want to have a discussion about trail maintenance and promotion. That also came up in the board of directors meeting. And then I'll just give a really short report, short and sweet, all good news from the board of directors meeting that I went to, and Peter's now joining Siderius. Add him to who's here. So hopefully we'll get through this depending on the discussion. I don't want to cut us short of any good discussion, but if I can, I'll try to get everybody home early tonight. Any questions about the agenda from the committee members? Hopefully you saw the meeting packet included the minutes and then also some maps for the discussion around the trail names. All right. Would any of the folks in the audience tonight like to make any public comments?
Oh, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess my first question is, where do we send comments or items to be on the agenda? I sent something a couple weeks ago and received no reply, so I don't know if it's going to the wrong place or not, but I guess that was one question I had, or if there's different processes to it. And the other one was hopefully putting out there that we could organize a trail cleanup party or trail maintenance party. We have a lot of people that are interested and well-versed in running those things, and was hoping that we could maybe talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you. And what was your name? I'm sorry. I didn't see who was saying their names earlier. Just want to know.
Oh, no problem. My first name is Ryan and my last name is Ryan Hoffer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other public comments that folks want to make?
Just wanted to ask a question if I could. When we're talking about the trails and naming the trails, is this where we would talk about whether we're gonna utilize the names that are already there for some of the trails, like on the original names, a lot of them, some of them still have the wood identifiers as to what the names of them are. I think that would be wonderful if we could do that. I think in the nature of the history and everything. Some of them got shot up about 2 or 3 years ago, which is unfortunate, but it just would be nice that those of us that rode there for old poker rides and even that had access to the trails when Crystal was still alive and all the boarding was up there. It's just kind of cool. Some history there.
Awesome. Yeah, and to respond to both y'all's questions, I believe, and we have it listed in the agenda, and let me know if you sent it to Kat, but right now we're having any public comments go through Kat Ricker, the Public Information Director. Did you send your email to Kat?
I did. I sent it to
Okay.
Kat and I copied Casey on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will follow up with them and just make sure that we get that or any future comments forwarded to me so we can bring them up and consider them at the meeting. I do apologize for that, but I'll make sure that we get a system in place so that works out properly.
Yeah, awesome. I have one other thing. I'm sorry. I have one other thing I just wanted to mention, and then I think I'm done. When you were talking about the signage at the last meeting or the meeting beforehand, and the separation of the equestrian and the bicyclist, there's one thing that I live up there and I notice a lot of off-leash dogs running all over unattended. And I didn't know if there was going to be signage to combat that or to remind people it's not an off-leash dog park on either side, or maybe set up a designated area for the off-leash like they have everywhere else. Just a thought.
Awesome. I'm just going to record that. Yeah. So to respond to all your questions, first, I'll go back and respond to the trail names question. Tonight, we're going to discuss the ones that we have recorded, the original names. There was a public comment at our last meeting around that as well. And the board of directors would like us to pursue keeping those names, the ones that were originally there. Like you mentioned, many of them had signs, some of them are in disarray, but some still exist. So we're going to prioritize we'll have a discussion tonight to keep those and then figure out. We also want to try and name the rest of the trails that don't have names on record, so that we can stray away from the numbers, the trail numbers, since there are trail numbers for different segments, and maybe a trail is composed of several segments and numbers are just kind of boring. So we'll have a discussion about that, but I think I'm confident in saying the board wants us to pursue keeping all of the original names. So we'll have a discussion about that tonight. In regards to the signage for the off-leash dogs, I think we'll have a discussion with the CPRD staff when we're ready to implement. I know that they elected to pursue the polycarbonate trail markers and utilize decals. So there are obviously a number of decal options, including signage to designate trails as being leash required. And I think we can work with the park staff to make sure additional signage, whether it be at the trailhead or at major junctions, reiterate that it's a leash required park. So I'll make sure that we bring that up whenever we get to the discussion with staff. But I think there was definitely a intentionality in making sure that we could have that type of regulatory information included in the directional signage. So I'm sure that'll come up here in the next few weeks as they prepare to order that equipment. Awesome. With that, there's no other comments. We're going to go ahead and move on to the agenda.
Oh, there is one other comment.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Quentin, when Ryan sent in her request to get on the agenda, there was a whole list of items that the equestrian community had come up with about how to approach a trail work party, including a date. We just didn't want to go out there and start trimming.
Or throw out a date that didn't have
Yeah,
some organization and backing.
Right,
Yeah.
so how do we had certain ideas of how we would approach this. Like, we were deciding it's gonna be a public work party for hikers and equestrians on the west side. Based on our experience, we didn't want people out there with chainsaws.
Yeah.
It's just too much liability. So, we had certain things we were gonna say, okay, it's gotta be hand tools only.
A certain section.
Yeah, certain sections, I mean, there's standard rules the Forest Service has for horse trails, where, you put your arms out, and that's how wide, and it's 10 feet tall. But I don't know what your requirements are, so we didn't want to go out there without getting a stamp of approval, how to go about this. We would train the volunteers, like, how to lop correctly so they don't leave stops, or, do you want the vegetation that gets trimmed distributed evenly in the woods? Do you want it, there are a bunch of details that we just don't want to do it the wrong way for whatever your practices are. So that's why Ryan submitted something, and I called Casey to go over it with him, and I haven't heard back from him either. So
Okay.
We don't want to go out there and do something you don't want.
Awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. I think we're going to defer questions like that to the park staff, since they're going to be the ones actually making the management decisions. So I'll go ahead and bring it up in an email conversation, since I don't have access to that public comment that you emailed Kat earlier, and see if we have some type of response. I know Brian's there. I don't want to put him on the spot, but maybe we can figure out some answers to those questions, get that work group organized so they can go up there.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not putting me on the spot. I'd be the one you'd organize through anyway with that,
Awesome.
Russ and myself, so.
Yeah.
I will follow through tomorrow on locating the email and the punch list that was on there. I personally will get back to you guys, either via through Kat or whatever, but
I'll give you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the point guy with this, with Quentin and you folks, and
Awesome.
yeah, I work directly with Russ up there, so
Okay.
And Brent,
this is
what was your
wonderful
last
stuff. Stuart, it's TWART.
Yeah, we threw out a couple dates, so if it's all copacetic.
Absolutely, we'd all want to work together on that and be
Yeah.
productive and get
Let
some,
us know too, so we can come out and help.
oh, of course, yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
And I would think we'd want to include bike people and any people, not just horse people or walking people. So it's all about the greater good of the trails. It's volunteers and all.
Yeah, and I don't know, on that note of volunteerism, I don't know if the CPRD supplies a porta potty.
We can do a lot of things with the
Okay.
coordination with me
Okay.
here. Yeah,
Okay.
well, we have access to restrooms up there too, but we can get stuff out on the trails.
Okay.
And also, I think at one of the meetings we asked, is there some sort of, I mean, normally there's a volunteer agreement or a liability.
Yes, we
waiver.
do have volunteer forms you fill out or whatever.
Okay,
And
great, because if we can get those in advance, we can get everybody to fill them, I mean, at the day. of.
very good point. You
Yeah.
bet. But I will follow through tomorrow with that on Cat, and I'll get responses back to you. We'll find some dates to coordinate with Russ and roll the dice with the weather and, see how that goes, of course.
There's
But,
always that.
like today, there was a
Beautiful.
half a day where we get a lot of stuff up there. I was just up there today too, so
Okay.
that's exciting, so I appreciate that.
Yes. I have one other question, and it's about signage. One of the things that I've experienced in other places where there's mixed parking, like horse trailers plus hikers, is if you don't put up some clear signage, you can end up having, because people don't understand how big a horse trailer and a truck is. So if there is any way, and we'd be happy to come up with verbiage if you need it, to just designate, like, please, hiking or just cars over here, leave room for horse trailers, because otherwise you can get in there and not be able to turn your rig around, or
Yep.
somebody,
Or open the back
or
door.
open the back door.
On that note, I was up there 2 weeks ago and someone, I don't think it was Russ,
Volunteer
but I don't know for sure. Someone started cutting their
Thank you.
own path out of the driveway in the turnaround of the horse trailer. That wasn't there before. So I don't know who did it or why or what, or maybe Russ did it. It didn't look like a professionally done cat job. But to your point, someone went off-roading with a big vehicle to, I don't know why, to get around or whatnot, but signage there would be good.
Wait, where was this at?
The turnaround where the horse trailers are,
Yeah, I know exactly what the area is,
Yep.
and Russ and I have talked about that, ironically, last time we were up there, that he noticed that.
Yep.
And making a point of how the trailers do get in there, and that's a very good point, that would be a designated area for horse drop-off and
I
whatever,
worked
and
on
then,
they did at Tryon Creek where we now have designated.
oh, absolutely.
And I can talk to you about that.
Makes
too, how we
perfect sense.
decided it.
That would all be part of the thing we could do right away, as well as the master plan, it's gonna be part of that.
How many volunteers are you guys planning to have?
well,
We're gonna put out.
put out quite a bit.
I'm guessing 20 to 30.
I'm guessing probably a little bit more.
Okay.
We could print up some forms right now that we could take with us
Okay.
tonight, and then maybe a few extra too.
Can you digitally send it to me? Yeah. That would be the best
Sounds good.
because I have the emails for everyone and I can digitally set it up.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I think Brian will make sure that I don't know if Casey or you already included in the original email, make sure that gets to you and then we can see where this goes. It sounds like great work. Want to make sure that goes through the CPRD staff.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period and we'll move on.
Just like real quick,
Yep.
later,
Go ahead.
a couple of the bike trails kind of have names, definitely not as official as the horse stuff, so whatever that's.
Do you have those recorded somewhere that you could share with us? I don't think that was on any of the material that I had.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I can email you or whatever.
Okay, thank you. On that note, Bob and Crystal Riley Park trail name. So again, the backstory last, oh my gosh, I am forgetting approving the meeting minutes. We're going to pause there. We're going to approve the January meeting minutes. Is there any discussion from the committee members on that?
Nope.
No.
I thought it looked good.
Nope.
All right, I move the motion to approve January's meeting minutes.
A second.
So moved.
Awesome. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right. Now we will get into the discussion about the trail names. So going back to the January meeting, there was some public comment regarding keeping the names. They were donors and significant individuals to the history of the park, and that's why they were named what they were. And someone there at the meeting was hoping that we could retain those names. That was a discussion. I think we had some CPRD board members there also. I think Jim was there, commented on that at the board meeting. They also shared the interest of keeping those names. So that's where they would like us to keep the original names, and then also look to designate names for other trails that aren't currently named. So I don't think we're necessarily looking for a definitive answer, for all the trails, naming them all tonight. But just I provided the maps that I have available from CPRD, and the maps that I've created that have the names that we were able to see signs for. Those are included also in the meeting packet. Not too many when you look at the east side, doesn't really have any on our records. So I think it'd be good just to have a discussion of how the committee would like to go about designating names, or if we would just like to approve in our thought to just keep all the original names. I mean, the board's asked us to do so, and I think I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but if we want to do that, we should probably do what the board's asked us to, and then consider how would we want to go about naming the other trails. So that's where I just want to have an open discussion with the committee tonight. Is anyone opposed or have concerns about retaining the original names on the trails that have names?
No, it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I think it's a distraction to try and change them. But Quentin, I want to ask, did the board agree with our proposal to have the west side be equestrian and east side be bikes? And did they agree with the signage and all that? I mean, it seems like that is the priority over what we name the trails. Did they agree with that? And where do we stand there?
Yeah, all three proposals we brought, so the bylaws, the managed use east versus west, and the trail signage recommendations were all approved. Staff are going to be implementing the signage recommendations, and they're going to be making sure that the ones that they put in immediately here this spring won't conflict with the master plan and any potential changes associated with that. They want to prioritize making sure that there's signage out there for users when the trails open back up. So with that being said, they were hoping that we would look to use trail names rather than numbers. And the idea that existing trails likely won't disappear in the master plan process. And I don't think we should have concerns around them necessarily being changed in the master plan process. That process would likely only impact who could use trails. So I think, to answer your question, yes, they approved everything and they're looking for names, not any type of management beyond that.
To the degree that there's some time pressure to get this done before the spring, I would suggest that we adopt trail names such as they now exist, and we not let a discussion about other trail names that don't have names to get in the way of moving this forward. I mean, the idea was to have this done by the springtime, and it's February. And so if the board agreed with our proposals and signage is in the works, let's agree with existing trail names. And we could go on forever about unnamed trails getting named. What do you say, Pete?
I think you just have a process, some kind of process to go about naming them, or the staff just names them. But the users might want to have something to say about it. I don't know. It's not to me, it's not a big deal. Just get them named so that, yeah.
We could go on forever.
Yep.
About it. And we don't want it to delay the process of getting it signed and getting it done.
How many trails are outstanding without names? 5, 10?
We have 16 trails that are named. And the other thing to think about here is that the way that we've done the inventory is that it's by trail segment. So some of the named trails include more than one trail segment. So, I mean, we probably have half of the trails named. So we need another, 15 trails to be named.
I say we let the staff do it.
Are they all on the east side or west side? I'm confused a little bit.
The trail name?
Yeah.
Was it?
The ones that you're looking at naming, are those on the east side, the newer trails that Russell's building?
Correct. There are a few that are, maybe 5, 6 that are not named on the west side.
What document do you have? Because I know that Dan is unfortunately not here right now, had original historical documents with all of those persons that the trails were named after and why, and including some of the trails on the east side. This is what they have.
I don't know if Brian, I know that somebody mentioned those documents that exist, and I think they're at the property. Do you know if
Yes,
right. Looked at those?
Yes, we've looked at those, and there are more. Well, I can't say for sure, but I believe there are more than what's right here. Like, for example, on the east side, the longest east side trail, there used to be a mill there. And so it had a name correlating to that mill, which there's nothing on here about that.
Historically, yeah, there's more available.
Yes, with historical relevance, and that's, I wasn't around in those days, so I'm not exactly sure personally, but
it did show
yes,
the names on these maps.
It did show the names on the maps
and
at the farmhouse.
Didn't name it working on that.
Deanna is working on that with Casey, yes.
Okay. To that point, and going off of what Alan said, I mean, if they've already been named, I think we should just go ahead and adopt the names that are in the record, whether they're on these WH Pacific maps that were done that are obviously missing information. We can update those in our internal inventory with the historical records, and keep those names as well. Brian, do you know about the work Casey's doing around those?
I know he had, someone had approached him about wanting to look through the archives.
That's Deanna.
Deanna did, yes,
Yep.
and he gave her access for that,
Yep.
absolutely. I would go with the idea that, just my opinion, is definitely approve or adopt the historical names we already have on record. That's not gonna change, so that's moving forward. And then the rest is we're ordering stickers, so we get the infrastructure in for the signs. You guys accumulate the names, we have input, there's plenty of trails for everybody to name, it sounds like, even ones that aren't named. So that's, and that's a cool discussion that everybody could have and come up with that. But, as mentioned, you could sit here all night tonight and still not satisfied with that.
I think there's more than what's already listed here based
Sure.
on what's the
And then
farmhouse.
with Dana looking, we can
Yeah.
definitely amend that and add to that, and that's gonna be happening. All of a sudden she opens this box, and oh wow, look what's in
Yeah,
here.
yeah, exactly.
That's what happened.
That's,
Yes.
that would be,
Brian, do you think we could have, could we circulate a scanned copy of those records with the committee potentially? And I mean, do you have a timeline for when that information might be updated with the internal maps that we have access to right now?
I do not. What would your timeline, what would you prefer as a timeline?
Well, I mean, y'all are gonna be ordering the,
Right, so that's happening
materials.
ASAP.
Okay.
Like tomorrow, we're sitting down and moving forward. That was gonna happen today, but Casey literally threw his back out after moving furniture and told me at 6 a.m. he had to go lay down, so.
okay. Well, if we could potentially get a scanned copy of the records that y'all are referring to and that Dana and Casey are working on to the
Right.
committee, just so
Yeah, I'd have to
we
start
know.
with Casey to see where Dana's at with that.
Okay.
In terms of.
I can circle back around.
Yeah, because that's gonna dictate, that's her thing, and I don't know what her timeline is.
But to that point, I think, Alan in the committee and Brian, if we're comfortable, I think go ahead and just, maybe we can make a motion to approve the historical names, and CPRD staff will utilize existing information to appropriately designate those trails that have already been named. And then.
So moved.
Awesome. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. That one passes. And then to the question about any remaining names, I think for now, we can just leave that unaddressed. If there are any that are unnamed, the marker posts will be installed regardless of the decals that are on them. If there are any missing, I'm sure in the time frame between ordering that equipment and the CPRD staff evaluating if there's any missing names, probably our March board meeting, we can have a discussion. But otherwise, it could be an open forum with the user groups to decide how those are named, or we can use CPRD staff to do so at their own discretion. But I think we can just leave that undecided for now, given that it sounds like we have a name for every trail, just not on the maps that we have access to. Are people comfortable with just leaving that open for now?
Yeah, unless there's anything that falls through the crack, we could call all the unnamed trails the Pete Siderius Trail.
Don't want to let that get to his head. I'm just kidding, Pete. Pete was my high school teacher, just so that folks know.
Yeah, so,
Okay. Alan?
no,
You have
that's
something
it.
else? Okay. Awesome. With that, I think, is there any other discussion on the trail names? Are you signaling that you want to say something, Pete? Okay, awesome. Moving on to trail maintenance and promotion. So again, the board of directors, when I gave my report, which I'll talk about, would like us to continue prioritizing the work around establishing a knowledge base. So we talked at our last meeting briefly in our goals discussion about how do we make sure the folks interacting with our trails as far as maintenance goes, or even construction at that point, are doing so in regards to either trail standards or trail construction practices. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. Russ does a great job up there, but they'd like us to prioritize that so we can have a discussion around. I threw out some upcoming opportunities I could find for people that are interested in going to trail construction or maintenance workshops. The PCTA and TKO have some coming up. So looking at, are there opportunities for our committee members to go to those professional development opportunities and come back and share that knowledge, or other volunteers? And then also promoting the use of our current trails in the work of this committee was something that they were interested in, that we've discussed. So just have open conversation around what we might be able to accomplish here in the short term. I love hearing about the equestrians and their group of maybe 30 or more volunteers. I think we won't necessarily be coordinating each and every work party. I think the CPRD staff will have a lot of oversight in that, just for liability and compliance and stuff like that. But anything that we want to organize in addition to these groups that are doing it on their own, we can do so through either our focus group that's on that community outreach, or as a committee as a whole. So I don't know where we want to start the discussion. We had a little bit of it at our last meeting, but do folks have any ideas or comments on that?
I have 2 points. One is Matt Dolphin is involved in a group. He's not here tonight, but he's involved in a group that does trail maintenance, and I suggest he be our liaison for that. Number one. Number two, I may have pointed out that I'm on the board of the Yamhilla's West Sider Trail, and we had a board meeting yesterday, and it came up that April 22nd is the National Rails to Trails Day, and they began talking about how to do a promotional event. And I suggested that we do a co-branding event at Riley Park, and we looked it up, and it apparently won't be open to bikes or to horses at that time. But I just want to report to you all that I opened that discussion with them, and they like that idea of maybe having an event there sometime to co-promote.
Awesome. And more broadly, I know there is a National Trails Day on the first Saturday in June. And then there's also National Public Lands Day, September 23rd of this year. I know a lot of other agencies do work parties on those days and invite people to hike and recreate as well. So I think that'd be a great idea to collaborate, maybe on that Rails Trails Day, but also on any of those other designated trails focus days.
It's on their radar to do some sort of promotional event once the park is open and signed and organized. That they're thinking about that, about how to bring attention to their cause by using Riley Park.
Awesome. Any other ideas or comments from committee members?
I like the idea of the June, work party idea. It really gives us enough time to organize, and everything will be open by then.
That is true. And I know that there are promotional materials available from, I'm trying to remember, the National American Hiking Society. We can register our event with them, and it'll be promoted through their national channels. And there's a toolkit for the individual events as well. Brian, do you think that CPRD would be able to manage the things associated with operating a single day kind of mass event for volunteering?
Absolutely. I think we want to be involved with that for sure.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity to engage with users and community members and everything else. So shine some light and exposure on that property that belongs to all of us.
Mm-hmm. would you say, Brian, while I have you, that it's Bob and Crystal Riley Park, the one that needs the most attention? I know that there's like you and Young and some other parks that do have trails, but is Bob and Crystal Riley Park the one that we should be focusing on?
Well, it's obviously the largest, but there's opportunities at all the trails. So on different scopes and different levels. So you see initially with the momentum that is and that's involved with the people, the users, immediate users that are using the Riley property, that's a great place to do it or to get involved with initially. But I know the Trails Committee is not losing focus on the other trails that CBRD has. And there's opportunities there too. There's quite a few users that use the Getman Trail and Ewing Young. And they're quite busy. People love our trails, but to say a short answer, yes.
Okay.
Riley Park.
Awesome. Thank you. Would I can't remember, I'm sorry, if anyone in attendance is on the focus group that we started a while ago, or the subcommittee on community outreach promotion. But would we want to tackle that initiative and collaborate with CPRD staff and then also our trail users to organize a volunteering event on June 3rd? Would that be of interest to folks?
I mean, I'll definitely help out, but I don't have any resources, but, you know, if Kat can lead me the right way, you know. Maybe Sydney. You too? Okay.
I would help with that, working with Brian and helping him get,
Cool.
if that's fine with Brian.
All right, Sid. Let's do it.
Awesome. And I think, you know, like you mentioned, we have, was that 3 months or so to plan? That might be something that we can start an email chain about with CPRD staff to figure out what are the basics. And then as we get closer, kind of iron out the details. But I think that'd be a great opportunity for us to engage with the community and provide some maintenance there in the early part of the trail season. Any other ideas around or any comments around the Alan, you mentioned Matt and having him as a liaison. I think he works with TKO. I actually met Matt at the PCTA Trail Skills College a few years ago, but would folks be interested in this? I can open up this question to the folks in the room. And if we brought experts, trail experts, and had our own training, maybe even at Bob and Crystal Riley Park, would folks be interested in attending an opportunity like that?
Yeah.
Because I did notice that aside from their scheduled events at their various locations, TKO, at least, Trail Keepers of Oregon, does offer they come out to you and train your folks about trail construction, trail maintenance. I'm not sure if there's a cost associated with that, but maybe that's something that we can look into, and maybe we can have, generally when you're doing trail maintenance, if it's not the managing agency staff overseeing a trail crew, it's going to be a volunteer that is trained in whether it's first aid or the actual trail skills. So I think having folks that might be able to go out to these work parties with members of the public and kind of guide them when we have these work parties and these other maintenance opportunities might be a good idea. So I don't want the committee to feel obligated to be those individuals, but I mean, if anyone's interested, I think that would be a great opportunity for us. And I'm sure there's the park staff would be interested in also learning some about the trail maintenance. I know that Russ is a longtime trail builder, so he can probably also share some knowledge with us. But I'll reach out to Matt and figure out, maybe talk with Kat and TKO to schedule something here before June and see if that might be a possibility here to train folks in CPRD. Any thoughts on promotion and getting folks to use trails? I know we've talked about, there's been some public comment about the management, and I think CPR, I'm just going to default to the staff are going to do their due diligence and making sure that it's signed appropriately with the regulations and whatnot. But any ideas about how to, getting more folks out there and aware of what trails that we have? Was there anything that came out of the subcommittee earlier in the year?
We were thought about going to the markets, Tuesday markets, and you did a few of that. Because that seems to be a great gathering place for people, but we weren't really equipped with, I don't know, handouts and.
The Newburgh Downtown Coalition is willing to do a QR code at their booth at the Wednesday markets, so that as people walk by, they can just scan their phones and then have what the CPRD already has as a trail brochure or whatever, they can put it on that or have access to get there. So they are very, very willing to do that for us. I
Awesome.
think they start when in May, April or May again.
And that's is it a weekly Wednesday market there in downtown?
Yep.
Awesome.
And we could yep.
I believe the CPRD has a booth there also. They actually facilitate that, so you could work directly with, or we could work together on that.
Okay, perfect.
And I think Kat had mentioned doing a survey for people too, like what they want as part of trails in the future, and get maybe signed up on the newsletter, the email newsletter that goes around. So that's another. So I guess having people attending the Wednesday markets and kind of interacting with the public is the only thing I could think of.
And that might be an opportunity to gather a list of folks that'd be interested in volunteering as well through those opportunities in some type of survey.
There's another question in the room. Go ahead.
Not a question, but there are lots of 4-H groups and high school equestrian teams. Now, a few of them that I've talked to, and know nothing of the beautiful equestrian park. So, I mean, if you could get statewide or a list, a county-wide list of the 4-H and equestrian teams, that's a great place to start. Just give them a link to the website. You really want to send them anything. You can just send them an email or message them.
Yeah, perhaps that's something that we can. I mean, Scouts also came to name, being an Eagle Scout. I mean, I'm sure there's cyclist groups as well. I know that we have a BMX track in the district. There's probably also folks interested in the more traditional mountain biking. There's probably groups around there that would also be of interest. So I think that might be something for us to look at, is identifying these groups that we can specifically target. Now that we hopefully I'm hoping that I can work with Kat here in the next few weeks to finalize public trail maps. I know the ones that we've been sharing have been mostly for our purposes, but there should be new publications that could be distributed at the Wednesday market, digital versions on the website that could also be distributed to these groups. As we open the trails back up, that might be a good idea to target those specific users and give them the updated information.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
This is Hope Robertson. What you're talking about in terms of encouraging volunteers and organizing a June trail work party and then whatever the equestrians organize is great, but there's one step that sort of needs to be done. I mean, I was thinking of going out to review some of the trails to figure out where we should focus our activities, but it seems like it's really important when you're going to have volunteer work parties that you know what you want to accomplish. And you have a discrete task, like we are going to redo the tread for this segment of the trail. Because otherwise I mean, I know, because I've been to chaotic trail work parties and you don't get anything accomplished and you get things done you don't want to have done. Like if the equestrians do something, I would not want to touch the tread unless I had really clear oversight from CPRD about what they wanted. But it would be really useful to say, hey, these are the 6 priorities over the next year for our trail maintenance at Crystal Riley. I mean, I know how I might set it, but that might not be how you would set it. And then you can have organized work parties to accomplish those goals throughout the year. And if there's a list posted on the website and people know going into it, this is what we're working on, then they know, okay, you're gonna be hiking 2 miles in, 2 miles out, we bring tread tools, blah, 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 bring enough water. You can lay the whole work party out so you get exactly what you want accomplished. But without an inventory of where the key problems are or how you want it done, it makes it really hard to have a successful trail work party. That's my experience.
No, that's a very good point. You have to have a good starting point and have a plan. So we will make sure that through communication here, that here is the plan, and this is how we implement the plan, and this is how we accomplish the plan, and all hands on deck, and then you have fun. You want
Okay.
people to,
Oh, you
that's
wanna
how you're
have fun?
productive, you know, it's like anything else. So we do that daily, and I'm looking forward to helping organize that too. But yeah, using the key players that already know what are we trying to accomplish, what's the end game.
Where the trees are down.
So Russ obviously is gonna
Right.
be, and then keeping in mind where our future master plan is taking us with trails, so.
Right.
So we use our time wisely, yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Can I mention something real fast? So there's two things I would like to bring up. One thing about that, but give me a second to get back to that. Quentin, have you heard of the hiking project or trail run project by OnX?
Repeat that last part there.
By OnX?
On X, I have not.
Okay, it's a website where you can go to find hiking trails or running trails. There's quite a few around us, but in our district, none of our trails are mapped on there. And one of the things I wanted to bring up is once we get the data from you is to get that into the hiking project and run maps if it's a trail that can be ran. That way, when people are in any portion of the country, if they're coming to visit, they can go on that app and find a hiking location, and that'll help drive people towards that outside of our district, but also in our district. And they have a really nice mapping system where you can see every trail, each trailhead, the length of it, the whole 9 yards.
That sounds better than all trails.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes more.
And the coolest thing about it is you can upload the GPS data right to their site and label that trail the whole 9 yards. You can also take your phone and go hike that trail, and it'll do the same thing. It'll log from your GPS of your phone. I've talked to Casey about potentially, doing this eventually, and then Quentin came along and started his project, which we can totally take that data and import it into that, and that would give us a huge, what's the word I'm looking for? Spotlight, to everybody else to see what we have to offer here. And then the other thing is for the issues of like trail maintenance, I think we should have listed on a mapping system, preferably web-based, which I can help do since I do a lot of web mapping software, is to have our trails listed on a map and then have icons that say, hey, there's this problem at this location. And then when you guys go to figure out what we're going to do for the day, you can view that map, zoom in, see where to, how to get there. That way, here needs to be addressed, this needs to be addressed, and all that. And then internally, we haven't came up with this project yet, but potentially a way for the public to alert us and take pictures and have GPS of where the issue's at on those trails. That way, it gives back to us with GPS and a picture of what's down or what's a problem on those trails. So those are some things that could be done with software and.
Is it Onyx, ONYX?
So
or
Onyx is a
ONX?
company that makes mapping systems for hunters.
Right, how is it spelled?
It's XONX or OnX. ONX.
Oh, ONX. Okay.
But the website you're going to want to visit is hikingproject.com, and then they also have a trailrunproject.com. And it's all free, so you just create an account, which we already have an account. We just need to upload our data and map out what's what.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And to that point, all the data that we've gathered so far and the other parks as well should be standard format to be able to upload. And I think once Kat and I kind of finish the review of that data, as far as making sure it's all accurate for the public, I don't see why we can't be publishing that here pretty soon. And I think to your point, and we had a brief conversation, I will make a note to circle back with CPRD staff, is that the software we utilize to record the trails can easily be used, the Esri GIS software, internally and even through the public, to manage the conditions and the maintenance required. So I'll make sure that we have a staff discussion around, is that a possibility, and to what extent maybe it remains internal. Maybe we include the option for folks on a cell phone to take a photo and submit it to CPRD. I'm not sure if Newburgh does it, but I know that Bend does it with potholes. If you see a pothole, you can alert the city and take a picture, and it becomes a workflow for the city to review if that's something that they can address. But I think there is a manageable opportunity, I think, for Kat and I are working on a web application. So think about Google Maps. If you have the trails on it for Bob and Chris Riley Park, we could manipulate the data in real time to where it could show if a trail is in poor condition or needs maintenance, or if there's a specific tree that's down. And I'm sure temporary signage would also be used when CPRD staff come across that as well. So I don't think that's necessarily something we can address in this meeting, but I'll see if I can have an update at our next meeting if there's anything that can come out of that as far as staff commitments go. But thank you for those comments.
And Quentin, you do know I work for CPRD, right?
I do.
Okay.
I assume I'll be working with you if that's the
You
case.
will be, yeah, because I'm the one that's going to be dealing with the data into our, and getting the software. So just want to make sure you knew that I was the person that was.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. And there is, and I mentioned this to Casey, and I think it might be too robust for CPRD, but the Forest Service does have something called the Trail Assessment and Condition Surveys. It's pretty comprehensive, but there might be an opportunity to where before the trail opens, and maybe it's an annual or semi-annual basis, there's some type of just generic form that someone who's walks the trails, it could be a volunteer, not staff, just records what are the conditions. Similar to our inventory, we recorded the measurements and whatnot, but maybe before we open the trails back up, we take a survey of some kind that's standardized, and we can use that to inform what our work party should be addressing come June. Brian, I'm sorry, remind me of when the trails are slotted to open.
I don't think there's a set date, but it's May I'm shooting for, but I don't want to speak for, the condition, but May seems to be a good standard time, but,
So sometime before then, we might look to do some type of inventory as far as the conditions go, and that could lead our discussion, our priorities for maintenance in June. You think that'd be manageable, Brian?
Excuse me. I'm sorry, Quinn, could you repeat that?
Doing some type of condition survey there, late April, early May, that can inform what priorities for maintenance we should be looking at for our June work party or other work parties.
Oh, absolutely. I think, for sure, if not before.
Okay. Awesome.
March is a long month.
I have a question kind of regarding maintenance. Melissa McLaughlin. Quentin, as you did the trail survey, are there trails that maybe for environmental reasons should be decommissioned? Did you find that? Was that something you were looking for or measuring for?
I mean, it based off of the different standards we were using, and I forget the acronym from them, the Trail Fundamentals and Trail Management Objectives. That survey really looks at the measurements and the development level of the trails, whether they're in good quality or bad quality is not necessarily what that's looking at. I will say that there are class 1 trails up there per the standards, which means are they're the least developed. That doesn't necessarily mean that they should be decommissioned. And it may also mean that we want them to be extremely primitive. So I think from my recollection, there's no trails up there that are, in such disarray or there are major drainage problems or vegetation problems or any type of invasives that we'd have to significantly reduce their use and even decommission them. I do think there are a few, Russ does a phenomenal job of, at least on the east side, of making sure that they are well maintained. There are some that there might be overgrown vegetation, so the standard clearing width may not be appropriate. And there are, I think, 2 trails that dead end, and those either need to be finished or maybe marked off as such. Other than that, I don't think any of the trails up there are in such condition that they'd have to be decommissioned or, users prevented from using them.
Okay.
Awesome. The last thing, and then we'll get out of here. I know that we had ideas to look at the website I'm working with Kat to update the publications for the trails with the appropriate maps. But was there any identified areas for improvement on the website that came out of that focus group from last year, or was it just a focus for future discussion? Anybody recall? Okay. I think Kat is interested in us looking at, do we want to improve the website by including additional information, and, obviously the maps being a major component of that. But if folks want to meet, or if we want to try and get the focus group together on email chain or something, perhaps we could have committee members look at the website or find examples of model websites for trails. I think that would be a great idea to bring back to our March meeting. I think just looking at, do we have the information we want there? Is it organized in a logical manner? And then we can work with CPRD staff to see if there are any modifications we would recommend, if that's manageable. Because I know that Kat, with the lack of maps at the moment, and we're just getting started in the midst of things. There's not a whole lot on the website for each of the parks with trails. So. Awesome. Any other further questions or comments on this trail maintenance or promotion? Perfect. Okay.
Wait, we do.
Oh, go ahead.
On your website issue, at some point in the future, when things really get rolling for Crystal Riley, as an equestrian, if I go to a website and I'm going to go on a trail I've never been on, it's really nice if there's a picture of the trailer parking, just a little picture that you can go to. Then you go, okay, I can get my rig in there. It gives you, and knowing whether there's water or no water, then it tells you how much you got to bring for your horses. Just certain things, basic information that really make it more user-friendly for whether it's hikers, like there's no porta potty. People need to know that, and they need to know, pick up, whatever you're using in the woods, take it with you. Just basic things about what the amenities are, or the fact that there aren't any, whatever it might be. I think that's important to list on your website, not just maps.
Awesome. 100%.
And the rules.
Yeah.
I know that Kat was interested in making sure that the rules were very clear for folks, so I'm sure that'll come up.
Dogs on leashes.
For equestrians and for bicyclists, for safety, if you don't have dogs on leashes, it can be a wreck.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll share my email here in a second, but
we have one more comment.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, from a hiking standpoint, not that you can't do work parties all year. There's always brushing out here in the spring and summer, but generally the bulk of the season is this time of year. And stuff's from that equestrians are kind of the same. But like, you want to be all the work done and ready to ride as soon as good weather hits.
Yep.
So it's usually like crummy weather, trail work, good weather, trail ride. Again, there is always stuff that can be done. So not really looking for that.
Right. And I think that's where we can look at this year. We may not have enough lead time to really coordinate the robustness that we'd probably all like as trail users to get ahead of the season for trail maintenance. But I think, the opportunity that y'all have presented us with the work party through the equestrian group, and maybe scheduling one from this committee at the early part of the season, we can get any of the major issues out of the way, and then in the future address off-season trail maintenance maybe in a more efficient manner. I do want to make real quick, so we get folks home, a comment from the board meeting. I went and presented again. All of our recommendations were approved unanimously. They gave us some direction in wanting to promote the trails, have people use them. And it was an interesting meeting, to say the least. I was happy to present and provide some context for the board of directors about our work. They're very appreciative, and I am also very appreciative of everybody on the committee for their collaboration and willingness to come to these evening meetings once a month and deal with me on the email chain. So just want to reiterate their thanks and my thanks to the committee and everyone that shows up and voices their expertise and their input. Without y'all, none of the work that we've done so far, and I look forward to the work we're going to do, that work wouldn't be possible. I will plan to go to the next meeting as well. That was fun. I can just do that for the group and report back. And I will make sure to follow up with our committee on some of the action items in the meantime before our March meeting. Several discussions on different subjects with staff. I'll make sure we address before March. But if anyone in the room, and I'll reshare, would like, this is my email that you can contact me directly. You can CC Kat if you have any public comments, or I'd love to, this amazing group in the room that always shows up to our meetings. I'd love to pick your brains. Maybe we can collaborate more directly on some of these things outside of a public meeting. Don't respect your all's time. So feel free to write that down, email me, and I'd be happy to work with the committee off on email and work with the staff to make sure we address your concerns and your ideas. Anything else from the committee?
No, thank you, Quentin. You're doing a great job.
Yeah. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Quentin.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Regardless.
Thank y'all. With that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your night.